Yeah, unfortunately, Lucianne was in Michigan. She was supposed to get back last night. The flight got canceled, so she couldn't be here today. But I'm here, and I had asked Stephen to put me on the agenda after the public hearing last 2 weeks ago regarding the Family Services Center. So I just wanted to provide additional time for questions and answers, and also explain what has transpired since that vote. Some of you may know we were prepared to put the property into the Parkside CRA. I had that item pulled from the agenda on Tuesday. I had some serious questions about our sales tax program along as it ties into the Family Services Center. And the fact that that site has not been nailed down yet with the Family Services Center concerned me, and the fact that $500,000 worth of sales tax money was used to purchase the old Lutheran church site. And that has to be repaid back as well if we transfer it into the CRA and put that out to bid for housing. So right now the status of the project is it's in a holding pattern until we resolve the Family Services Center issue. I had asked for a workshop with the commissioners, which is going to be put on our February agenda. So that will be publicly noticed, so all you folks will be able to go to that meeting, and we're going to discuss exactly where that Family Services Center is to go. My interpretation of the sales tax initiative was that it was supposed to go exactly where it is now. It was supposed to be either existing building raised or renovated, and an additional new 20,000 square foot be put on that site. So to me the language was clear, and really I arrived at that through the public input. I had an opportunity after the hearing 2 weeks ago to listen to a lot of the comments about the Family Services Center. So I had staff pull up some of the source documents for that, and as I read through those I realized the Family Services Center was really a top priority in my mind over putting housing in there, even though I still believe both uses are needed in Parkside. I was talking to a couple of folks here before I came in. Actually, prior to being a commissioner, I was on the Parkside Housing Subcommittee. I was just a private citizen at the time, and I was asked to participate in that committee. It was probably back in 2012, somewhere around there. And I was on that committee for a couple of years. And one of the things we were tasked with doing was identifying housing problems in Parkside, because as we all know, there was a landlord issue. There wasn't any pride in ownership, a lot of renters around here, and there was a lot of folks that wanted to fix their homes and needed help. And part of what the committee did, and I see some of the folks are here right now, Mr. Turpin's here, he was instrumental in Paint Your Heart Out here, and I know he took an active role in trying to help folks who couldn't help themselves. So it was identified for years that there's a housing problem in Parkside. The other thing we realized is there was no new housing stock built in Parkside, except for Habitat for Humanity. Nobody's taken the initiative from the private side to come in and spend money. And when you go back and look at the Citizens Master Plan, which was passed, part of that revitalization included improved housing stock within the community to help raise values. So all those things were in my mind when the vote came for the residential on that property, because I realized from those committees, plus living here for 35 years, I realized we need to change something up over there. So the church purchase was actually, thank you, that's all right, I'm used to it. The church property was an opportunity buy a few years ago, back in 2016. That church was for sale for over $1 million. I think they were asking $1.5 million. And it finally, there were no takers on it. It sat on the market for quite a while. So the county was able to pick it up for a third of the price in hopes of using it for improvement, making a 6-acre campus there. But the opportunity arose to help promote housing in Parkside, and I was a no vote going into that until I understood the process of the CRA. And by transferring the property into the CRA, and I said this at that meeting, the turning point for me was we get to condition it. So if we were to put that out to market now as surplus property and it was rezoned, then they can pretty much do anything they want within that new zoning regulation. But by conditioning it and putting the property into the CRA, We can say we want things like fee simple, which means home ownership. We wouldn't want a contractor developer to come in and put up an apartment complex with no guidance. So that was the key, and I mentioned that at the meeting if you go back and listen. So fee simple was key to me. The other thing that was key for me in that vote was the fact that we can determine heights. Even though we approved, I think it was 60 or 65 feet, we could restrict it to 2 or 3 stories max. You can say you want things like townhomes or villas. It's a palette of things we could develop to market the property. So those were things that I thought were very critical, that we would have a say in what goes in there. The other critical thing was, if we sent it out for proposal and the proposals came back and it didn't look like we wanted to look, we can reject it. If we left it as surplus land and put it out to bid and not transfer it to the CRA, you have to, by statute, take the highest bid, period. You have no say in it. So with all those restrictions, and I thought if I didn't vote for it, I don't want to say reckless, but I would be doing a disservice to the community. I'm required to look at all options in trying to develop that property. And I think I said earlier, I was talking to somebody back there. I mean, obviously this is my district. I certainly don't want to lay a bomb in my own district, especially as a first-year commissioner. So anyway, I just want to give you a little background. So where it is now, again, just to recap, it was pulled from the agenda. We're going to workshop the Family Services Center. And until the Family Services Center is resolved, we're not moving forward with transferring the land into the CRA to put it out for bid. So if you were to ask me the timing of this, it could be months and months before it comes back, because we're going to have to workshop it, figure out what we're going to do with the Family Services Center. So if the outcome is the Family Services Center does go there, we're left with 3 acres. So let's suppose that's the way it plays out. The 3 acres is still entitled to the 15 units per acre, but by leaving the Family Services Center there, it essentially halved the capacity, so you might only be able to get 45 units. So that may be more reasonable for some folks, but that's a possibility that those two things can coexist, so you can get improved housing stock and you can get the Family Services Center, which is what the voters voted for. So that's kind of where we are right now. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions regarding anything that I said. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Rachel Strubing. I happen to be the pastor's wife of Peace Lutheran Church.
Okay.
It was never out for $1.5 million.
Was it 1.2?
No, it was 1.
Okay.
And just so all of you know, we sold that property to the county. We offered it to the county as soon as we knew we were going to sell it. Why? Because the county was going to expand the Family Services Center. And we thought how wonderful it would be if they had our property and made a nice citywide block in the middle of Parkside, in the heart of Charlotte County, where there are a lot of children and parents that could access it, that need to access it. That was the reason we sold it to the county. And of course, we did vote for the penny sales tax that would expand the Family Services Center. So any idea that anything other than the Family Services Center, which the taxpayers did vote for, to be put on that, however many acres you want to call it, would be unethical, unreasonable, unnecessary, and unvaluable to the citizens of Parkside. We have children that need a place to go. We have children that can walk or bike to that property. We have a South County Rec Center, great, grand, and wonderful in Punta Gorda. None of these kids are going to go there, okay? We have the Harold Rec Center, that's nice, too far for these kids to walk or bike. The only thing these kids had going for them in Parkside was the Boys and Girls Club. And the county said on that tax that we would expand it. But instead, they tore down the sanctuary that was newer than any of the other buildings on that property, which would have made a most beautiful gym for kids to play basketball in. the property that they tore down was worth more than the property of the land. This shows you the thinking that went into that decision. So I really encourage all of us. I don't know how many agree with this or not, but I want to say the truth about it. The citizens of Charlotte County voted to expand the Family Services Center, period, on that property. And anything other than that is against the vote of the people, is an unethical and frankly, really a breach of trust as far as I'm concerned. So I'm hoping you're serious about not wanting to set a bomb in the middle of Parkside.
Yeah.
You must have listened to what I spoke about at the commission meeting when I pulled the item, because that's exactly what I said. I actually used the term to stay true to the initial tax initiative in 2014. Those are the words that I used, and that's why the item was pulled, and that's why we have a workshop to talk about it. Because prior to my coming on the board, the initial sales tax passed in 2014. The church was purchased in May of 2016. So 2014 it was voted for the 3 acres. When that was purchased, it's true, it was to expand the Family Services Center, but the board has a discretion also to look at other opportunities there.
To
But
go
I
against
don't-
what the taxpayers voted for is what you're saying.
No, the initial 3 acres were, what I spoke about at the meeting was the initial 3 acres where the Family Services Center is now. That's what the voters voted for in 2014 for $7.95 million to do a renovation or rebuild of that facility. That's the 2014 initiative. The church wasn't purchased until 2016. So that wasn't on the ballot. Just for a point of information, but you are correct. I think the intent was if we needed the land to expand it, it would be there, and it was an opportunity.
That was the reason the church sold the property to the county.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay. Well, I wasn't there at the time, other than what I know about it. I know I had a couple of brokers called me up when I was a private citizen that knew me and asked me if I was interested in buying the property because they couldn't sell it. It had sat on the market. You may know how long it sat on the market. But the bottom line is the county picked it up as an opportunity buy. They found some value in it, that they can turn a 3-acre campus into a 6-acre campus. But the initial sales tax initiative was in 2014. It only spoke to the existing site because the church site didn't exist in 2014. It was still owned by the church. But I don't disagree that to stay true to the sales tax initiative, we need to address the Family Services Center. Because I don't know what happened from 2014. We kind of waffled for 3 years without moving forward that project. I think the board, prior to my coming on board, gave direction to look at possible alternate sites. There was some question about do we put it there. So what we've done now is kind of refocused it and brought it to the forefront with the workshop we're going to have. So we're going to resolve the location of the Family Services Center here in the near future. So like I said, you know, there'll be plenty of time for more public input on that. But I appreciate your comments. Yes, sir.
When's the county going to loan us out of the real estate business? I would think you would have loaned your lessons from Modoc Village.
Yeah, and I don't think I said it was an opportunity buy. It was a willing seller. We didn't use eminent domain for that. It was on the market.
You stole it.
The county got involved. I think they felt for $500,000, how can they pass up the opportunity to create a 6-acre campus in Parkside? And I think they felt, you know, the county did advance $9 million to the Parkside CRA to get some of these projects jump-started. So I think, again, they felt that was an opportunity at $500,000 from its original list price. And I apologize, I thought I remembered over $1 million, but obviously you were there, so it was $1 million. So again, I think that was clearly just an opportunity to take advantage of a situation where they can create a 6-acre campus and develop something. Yes, sir.
Did you say that they took $500,000 out of sales tax money to buy that property?
Yes, and that would have to be repaid back through other funding sources, which I spoke about at the meeting as well. If we put it out to bid and a developer tried to do something with it, we'd have to pay it back. If it stayed as a public facility, it wouldn't have to be paid back.
Yeah, I understand all that, but that, to me, somebody let the fox in the hen house. we have a legitimate need for affordable housing, whatever language you want to use. And I appreciate Commissioner Truax talking about our teachers and firefighters and, but that's not the place. It's that simple. That's not the place. I'm retired, I'm chilling, I'm slowing down, but I'm ready to take this thing on.
Me too.
And if you think you got people here, and you're gonna get young people coming too.
That's right.
I mean,
We will rally them.
some of you are younger than I am, but you know, this is serious. And all this talk about density and CRA and shifting money, and if I lived across the street, do I want 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 stories? It's ridiculous. What's happened is this thing keeps getting delayed. The original proposal and the way the commissioners laid them out, this was a higher priority.
Tier 1. Tier 1.
Okay,
Tier 1
and here we are in 2018. So now we're talking about workshops, and we've got to decide what we're going to. So I hope you become a, well, I don't want to use maverick, that's, but to say, hey, let's talk turkey here. Where is this coming from? This developing the land and all that, not on that piece of property. There's a lot of places you can build housing, but there aren't a lot of places that are central to meet the needs of the Parkside community.
Amen.
So I just hope that you keep moving on the direction that you're moving.
Yeah, I can respond to that. I mean, I think I read an article in the paper by somebody that basically, some hyperbole saying the fix is in and there's developers paying off people. Anybody that knows me knows that that's not my deal. I don't operate that way, you know. But I can tell you this, the county, obviously there's been needs assessments, and everybody in this room knows, they probably read it in the paper, there's no affordable housing in Charlotte County anymore. When I say affordable housing, market rate housing, or any new housing stock, to give those firefighters, like Commissioner Truax said, the school teachers, a place to live. It's become a real issue. So we're looking at opportunities to bring good housing into the area. And if you read the CRA, as I said earlier, that's all part of the concept, community redevelopment. And rezoning isn't anything new. The zoning board meets every month. We do rezoning all the time, because some of the zoning and some of the platted lots and property from GD from 50 years ago was at that time. But obviously, communities change. That's why you have zoning, rezoning, and they make recommendations. It goes to the board. We're the elected constitutional officers, so we make a final decision on those items.
But there's so many other places you could build that.
Well, there was an yeah, I'll get you next, ma'am. But there was a needs study done. There was a group called Together Charlotte, and I know we even and even through our own internal housing director has identified the need for housing. So we look for opportunities where we can partner and bring housing to Charlotte County, because there's a need. To say there's not, you're looking the other way. But can these things coexist? Can you make a project that's palatable, and like I discussed earlier with these types of restrictions, that can fit in to an existing community as part of that redevelopment to help bring properties up? I mean, obviously everybody's going to have a different opinion on that, but that was a theory behind it. I mean, to say otherwise, that there's some people waiting, paying people money to do these things, that's certainly not the case. So I would have to push back against that. Yes, ma'am.
The November zoning board decision did not recommend you make that change.
Yeah.
You all voted for it. They said it wasn't a good idea.
Yes.
And you did it anyway.
Yes, that's what I just said. The zoning board makes recommendations. They bring it to the board, and we make the final decision as constitutional officers.
They didn't make that recommendation.
Yeah, I know. They made a recommendation not to do it, but we get the final say. So for all the reasons you heard at the meeting, we voted against the zoning board's recommendation. Because what they said, when they make a vote, again, I don't know how else to say it, it's just a recommendation. It's not a final vote. It comes to they make the recommendation and send it up to the board for a final public hearing. So that's where that came from. Yes, sir.
How often has the board gone against the zoning board?
Oh, I wouldn't know. I'd have to ask. I mean, I've only been on the board for a little over a year.
If you could find that out, I'd appreciate it and send it to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's possible. I mean, with as many zoning cases that have come before, You can send me an email as a records request.
Okay.
Who had their hand? I know there was some. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How come you can't build that over at Kings Highway where that trailer park got blown out? It's nothing but woods there, and it's high rises over there anyway.
Well, the county doesn't own any land over there.
Take
and
that 500,000 and buy it.
Yeah, I mean, part of having the property in the CRA or in Parkside is that it allows you to do public-private partnerships to make some of these things happen. Because we might not charge the same as a private person. In other words, you may take the land and say, look, here's the land, show us what you're gonna build. We'll partner and make that affordable. So that was one of the reasons. We just can't go out and buy land anywhere in the county.
All right, well, one other thing.
That would be getting into the real estate business.
One other thing. You say if you pay back the 500,000, you do what you want with the land. That's like stealing taxpayers' money. Go buy something, and then, oh, by the way, I want it, so now you're parking, not you personally.
Yeah, I know.
But you're parking it, give me 500,000 back, and you got $1 million piece of property. You guys are misappropriating the money, whoever's doing this.
Yeah, I think part of the,
That's how I see it.
yeah, part of the reason I pulled the item, again, if you go back and listen, I brought up those exact points about who owes what in terms of the sales tax money. So until all those things are resolved, and we get clarity on that, especially the Family Services Center, because I did state the Family Services Center is a Tier 1 project. So that means the voters said, it's not a Tier 2, it rises to the level of Tier 1, and we've given you $7.1 million to execute that wish.
So where is it?
Well, we're having a workshop, that's what I've been trying to say.
Another workshop.
Well, look, sometimes the path, as you probably know, isn't an easy one. There's a lot of rocky roads, forks in the road, and you know, here's the good news. I'm glad I dug into it and pulled the item. And it was,
too.
yeah, and it was due in large part to the comments I heard, and I went back and listened to the tape. I said, yeah, I want to know more about that, and I started digging into the CIP and the sales tax, and I did go through a lengthy, again, a 10-minute statement and reason why I pulled it, and that's why I got pulled. So I appreciate those comments, I get it, but one thing in public service, this is my first time doing this, it's not like we would do in the private sector. There's certain processes you have to go through. I wish things could go faster. The wheel in government turns slow, but it doesn't mean you can't turn it in the direction you want. And I heard from the folks, and that's why nobody asked me to come here. I think I called up Mr. Carter, and I said, put me on the next available agenda. I think there was some valid points made at the meeting, and I'm a public servant, and that's why I'm here. So nobody asked me to come here. I took the initiative to get over here. Mr. Stephen, you had somebody you said in the queue?
This young lady here has been very patient.
Mrs. Hutt, is that Mrs. Hutt?
I have plenty of time to talk. This will be quick.
Okay.
Number one, this shouldn't be a dilemma at all, because the people have already voted and have been told it's going to be another way, and the zoning board didn't even recommend to do what you all want to do. What makes you think that teachers and firefighters want to live in Parkside?
That's right.
In that location?
That's right.
Many teachers are married to other people and want to live somewhere else.
Well, I think part of the process we talked about with the putting out a request for proposal, an RFP, is that we put it out there and the private sector decides what they're going to, you know, if there's no market, in other words, they're not going to bid on it. If they just determine, hey, there's no demand for this, it's done. You don't get any proposals. So the private sector would come in and say, yeah, clearly there's a need. And I think by any measure, if you talk to anybody in the housing business, we have a demand for housing in Charlotte County. There's a waiting list for good quality housing in Charlotte County. We just don't have it. There's 1,000 people moving into Florida every day. That's every day. That's over 300. Oh, we all know our population demographic. When I moved here in Charlotte County, there was 55,000 people back in 1980. Now there's 175,000. We're growing by a couple of percentage points a year. They're discovering Charlotte County, and we haven't put any quality new housing stock on the market. We have some things in the hopper, but it still won't meet the projected demand, and that's not just coming from me. That's coming from the state of Florida, who does a lot of those population projections. But yeah, go ahead and finish. I think you had some more questions.
Yeah, I have two more. Will you vote to support the desires of the people of Parkside?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's why I'm here.
And why have a zoning board if you're going to not take the recommendations of the board, which you want to do anyway? Maybe not you,
Well,
you.
let me put it
the other four ones.
let me put it to you this way. And I'll just give you an example why they make recommendations. By right now, you're allowed a 60-foot building on that Family Services Center by right. So you can look at all the different things that can go in there. Nursing homes, emergency services, drugstore, pharmacy, business services, personal services, pain management clinics, places of worship, sanitariums. All those things can go in there right now by right. So what if the zoning board said, yeah, we want a 60-foot sanitarium in there? Wouldn't you want your board of commissioners to say, no, we don't want that if you guys didn't want it? See, it works both ways. What if the zoning board would have recommended something that you didn't like? We're your constitutional officers. We get the check and balance. We can say, no, we don't like that. Because by right, somebody could propose a 60-foot high, one of those things. So wouldn't you want your commissioners, if you didn't want that, to override them? So it works both ways.
We're the voters, though.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's an example why you want the check and balance, because there could come a time when the zoning board approves something by right, and then it comes to the board and we can do something about it.
Well,
So,
at one time, St. Vincent de Paul Society had offices there doing something.
yeah. Yes, sir.
My name's Randall Coy, U.S. military master sergeant, retired from the Army. I just moved here 2 years ago. First of all, y'all got that thing going on with the services for that. Why would you want to put apartments in there? Because the crime in this area is unbelievable. I've already been broke into one time. If I didn't have the dog, I would have been dead by now. My dog ate the burglar up. Right, gal, listen to me. And besides, we don't need that kind of element in here. And it sounds like to me that if you put that in there, it's going to be all Section 8. Because you're not, I'm telling you, this neighborhood right here is the biggest crime place in Port Charlotte. And I can prove it to you because I live on Meehan, on the other side of Harbor. Okay, I walk my dog down that way. Every day from 3 o'clock until 7 o'clock at night, it's Fireball Alley on my road. Okay, Fireball Alley. I got people walking up down there, they busted houses right down the street from me for drugs. Not one, but two. Okay? Now, I'm from Everglades City, Florida. I was born and raised in the Everglades. The reason why I moved here in Port Charlotte, because I wanted to feel safer, to get away from the good old boys. And now I come up here, and it sounds like the commissioners are from Lee County and Collier County in the good old boy network again. So you're going to do exactly what you want to do without getting our input in it. Just because you've been on here a year doesn't mean nothing. Okay? But I'm telling you, this does not need to go on. Leave that land for us to walk our dogs, let our kids play out there. I got a little boy that's 10 years old who comes over to my house on the weekends because I'm so busy out to the ranch. I'm a ranch manager out to the cattle ranch. And this time of year, it's really, really bad. We have to stay on our toes because the Mexicans down there are bringing that beef up in here. And Winn-Dixie just got the contract for all the beef. That's why the beef is low right here. We are the #1 producing state in cattle. But we can't sell our cattle here because of that, the Mexicans are underdealing us. Now, I want to say, please don't do this. Because I'll tell you what, if you do this, if you put those apartments in there, I will run against you, and I will run against you so hard that your head will spin, brother. I'm U.S. military, and I know what goes on. Well, I spent 25 years, Afghanistan, Somalia, Croatia, Iran, Iraq. I took a lot of stuff for this country. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you all put those apartments up over there, I will run against you and I will burn you, I'm telling you. I'll put every dime. I got friends on the baseball team up in Tampa. And I will get them to give me money to run against you. And I will beat you. I will. I guarantee you.
Well,
you can't do that.
Yeah,
you can't,
let me address a couple of your issues. First of all, thank you for your service. But I want to say regarding crime and things like that, what the county has done in Parkside is We've stepped up community policing. We have Officer Miller here. He spends a lot of his time, and I see him in Parkside all the time. We did a drive along last year. We just did an event this year. But what we've also done in terms of Parkside is we've hired a dedicated code compliance officer just for Parkside to help step up, keeping people within code, because there's been a lot of complaints about some of the dilapidated housing. But let me answer your question about the housing. What I talked about and what was identified with good quality housing is fee simple ownership. What we found when we were on the housing committee is it appears about half the homes in here are non-homesteaded, which means they're probably rental property. So what we were trying to do is develop a plan to promote home ownership. That's why when I talked about during the vote having a fee simple title, that means you're an owner. You have pride and a vested interest in the property. So that was a key element in the decision-making process.
Do you realize there's 27,586 veterans in this county that have houses here? Do you realize that?
And we're a Purple Heart community because of that, sir. And I appreciate the service. But to answer your question specifically about crime and things like that, one of the identifiable things that promotes crime is the rental rate, and there's no pride in home ownership here. What we were talking about is fee simple home ownership, because that's how you turn the tide with pride in the community and home ownership. So again, I understand we're going to disagree. I certainly get your point that you're not.
But what I'm saying is, so you listen. Yeah. So you build them. Okay, say you build them. Say you get all this stuff and you build them, right? Okay. First of all, you're going to have to charge at least $1,200, maybe, because I got rental houses near.
No, this isn't rental. This is fee simple. Fee simple means you're the owner.
You're going to own the apartment. Okay, I didn't know that. I'm sorry for stepping out of line. I'm sorry.
They're not.
You have a total set.
That's not, the criteria isn't on there. Lucianne said don't put any restrictions.
Well, if you listen.
That's not on there yet.
Yeah, when I voted 2 weeks ago, I said right from the dais, we can condition it with things like fee simple. Lucianne, if you go back and listen to the zoning board meeting 2 months ago, she said fee simple. So I said fee simple when I voted. Those are the kind of things I want to see in Parkside, because those were identified as
But they can still be Section 8, sir. No. They can still go Section 8. Yes.
Well, look, here's the thing. If you listen to what I said, I understand there's a lot of animosity here, but if you listen to what I said about conditions, we would put conditions on what we want there. So we would put conditions on the size, possibly the units, the aesthetics, how it looks. Those things are in Section 8. That was the reason. That's what I'm trying to say. There's reasoning behind it. Those are the things I said from the dais. And the fact that if it comes back and it's something other than what we thought, we can reject it.
But
so those are the things.
The Palm Board Housing Authority is very good here in Charlotte County. Okay, they're very good. They really do a nice thing, and they do put the right people in there. But there is people that slip through the cracks. Yeah, that's why we have so much crime around here. I'm telling you, there is a lot of crime, whether you realize or not. There's crime.
If you put conditions on what product goes in there, and those units. Anybody will tell you you're not going to spend under $100,000 to build a new unit. It's going to be over $100,000. You're not going to put subsidized or Section 8 housing. That's not consistent with that product. So I think something happened where I've heard the term slums, the ghetto, all these things. I don't know where that hyperbole came from, but that's not what we talked about. So, but anyway, I get it. I get it. And I had this lady in the queue.
Yeah. Hi. Yes, my name is Constance, and we've been actually forming an army of another group to address this. Background on me, my father bought property here 40 years ago. So I saw it when it was really nice, and at different times he decided, should I sell, should I stay? And at different times he decided, you know, I like this community, I'm going to stay through good and bad. Now the objections of the people that have been gathering in the new army, that's not Team Parkside, but another group, is that this is a single family home development. We do not want multifamily. In fact, we were in the Palm Room last spring when Tom Rice, and some of the people from the Economic Development Group came to us and said, we have $6 million. And they weren't talking about return on investment. They were talking about exactly what this other woman talked about. We are going to invest in your community. We're going to build, expand the Family Services Center. We're going to build you a park. We're going to build basketball courts. You know, what do you want? And everybody said, you know, and they said, do you want, what about multifamily housing? And we all said no. One woman even cried at the thought of it, okay? Because she worked really hard to restore the neighborhoods. They were blighted in 2008. And everybody is very emotional about this because you're going to put, you know, you talked reasonably. I listened to the December 12th, and you were reasonable. But two of the other, Commissioner Deutsch, we applaud him, but the other two want to push this through. Now, I heard Lucy Ann say, don't put any conditions on it. So your fee simple is that that's not there yet. Okay?
No, and those things have to be, but I'm just telling you, that's my
Okay,
position.
but I want to tell everybody that the Economic Development Director said, don't put conditions on it because you'll get less people. She also talked about we need 94 units to get our return on investment. Now, when you were going to invest $7 million, $6 to $7 million for the good of our community, to make our community a great place to live, work, and play, as is in here, okay? And we're supposed to have a walkable community.
Right.
Now, where are we supposed to walk to? Okay, you're going to make Gibraltar congested. Okay, I've got a 90-year-old father who likes to cross the street and visit the neighbor boy. The kids ride their bikes. They want someplace to go.
That's right.
And then Lucy Ann said, oh, well, maybe we'll put it on Lake Betty, but take away a park. This says you're supposed to make more parks for us, not less, okay? It does not, we're supposed to have places to walk to. We're supposed to have safe roads. You know, in another document I have Resolution 210-082. You talk about the inadequate streets. Where's the traffic study? Because it's irresponsible to put, you could have potentially 188 cars coming down our streets. Do you know they rip through our neighborhood at night and we can get hurt? In fact, one lady, they sped down Gibraltar, they hit her, she flipped up in the air. We don't want to see that, and it's irresponsible. Did they do a traffic study? No. We researched it, and we also want to research reconsideration.
Yeah.
Because you are supposed to represent this community, okay? And we want to know, can we get this revoted? And could you vote on our side, please?
Yeah, I talked about, yeah, as far as the reconsideration, I actually brought that up, and in our rules, I cannot reconsider in the rezoning. I'm not allowed to. However,
but why? Why? Because
it's against our rules.
But I would really like an explanation. On that.
Yeah, I can't cite the section of the rules, but
oh, I can. I have it right here.
yeah, there's a section. Thank you. Is this on still? Can you hear me back there?
Here, this.
Okay.
Just aim it toward you.
This is 2 pages to it.
Yeah, there was
I'll take this one.
Yeah, wait, I need this one.
No,
Maybe.
it's here. 15. Yeah.
Yeah, this is as well. Is there a second page?
Yeah.
Yeah, here it is.
You know, because I'm reading
I don't
this.
have my reading glasses here.
Well, we've got 12 days
Yeah, well, look,
to the next land use meeting that we would like to do this. And
Yeah,
we want to know why we can't.
Yeah,
and
I
also, one more thing, Joe. Lucy Ann told me that you had a public meeting 3 days after Irma. My God, we were evacuated. People were out of state. Wasn't that, you know, she says, there wasn't much public input. Are you listening?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay, she said, oh, there was poor turnout 3 days after Irma. Who even had electricity to even find out? And this is not on the website. All it says, I think back in 2016, Family Services is on hold. There's no information, public, and this radius you want to do? By the way, thank you for going for 500 for those other people. But we want all of Parkside to be notified. We want the whole community to get those flyers. And also, Lucy Ann said, I'm sorry she's not here, because I'd like to ask her these questions.
Yeah.
She said, the commissioners asked her, how many meetings do you need? And she says, oh, one. No! First of all, people can't come in the day. And what is this? Can we come at the workshop and talk?
No.
Because the way you did it, not you, but the way they did it is people came and said their thing and you voted. Why can't you say your thing and we get to write letters and talk to you? And you need to send flyers to this whole area because the traffic is going to kill us.
Let me try and answer. You gave me a lot there, so let me just go through the reconsideration. I looked into the reconsideration, and F section 3, if an ordinance or other action taken after required public hearing, those are things that won't allow us to reconsider. So there was a public hearing, and it was for an ordinance.
A public hearing that we weren't notified of.
Right, but to answer your question about a reconsideration, it can't be done because we're not allowed based on F3. And I checked on it. However,
But the public was not properly notified.
I think if you listen to what I'm saying carefully, and listen carefully to what I'm saying,
It's not
you can accomplish things in different ways. The item was pulled.
That we
The
appreciate.
Family Services Center is going to be workshopped.
But
So
you're-
the
but-
land is not going to the CRA. So it's going to be a procedural thing, or one step at a time. I think right now what we want to do and what I want to do is resolve the Family Services Center in the location it's at now.
And what exactly?
That is a priority because the vote, and I said this from the dais, the vote as a tier 1 project comes first in the pecking order, not the housing. So that's just where I am
But
today.
why can't they look for, at the end of your meeting, on the 9th, they're saying, well, let's look for a different place for the Family Services Center. You need to look for a place for the family housing. Why not Murdoch Village? What's wrong with putting the affordable housing there? That's a CRA.
Well, we have PEG going in there that's building 2,400 units.
Okay.
But to answer your question, I want to try and hit all the things you said first before I skip over them. Regarding the notification, there is notification required, not just for the first 250 feet, but we do public notifications in the paper. So there's other notifications to notify everybody at large. But I realized, and even before I was a commissioner, the 250 feet's not enough.
No.
So I actually proposed to go 500 feet, and we'll see if that gets some traction. The staff's going to come back with a recommendation. At least it doubles, and it speaks to transparency.
No, you got to do the whole Parkside
Yeah,
area.
and your other question about the public hearings, I heard everybody. I'm here for a reason. I didn't have to be here. I could have hid in the commission chamber. I heard y'all, and within days I called up, said, get me on the agenda. I want to listen to the folks and get some more input. So that's why I'm here.
We appreciate that, but the other two commissioners, we feel...
They can't do anything without my vote. They
even
can't do anything. It's 2. You need 3 votes to do anything.
Well,
We're at a stalemate right now.
Because
That's what I'm trying to say.
At the December 12th meeting, you were reasonable, appreciate that, but the other two had no concern that also we're concerned about the property values, and the neighborhood has made a big comeback.
Let's put it this way. Let's say that this is my unofficial reconsideration, since I can't do it through the parliamentary rules.
Okay.
So that's why I'm refocusing on the Family Services Center. But I also have to say, though, with that said, there is merit to quality housing. That's all I want. I don't want to beleaguer the point. That I just want to refocus on the Family Services Center because that is a priority through the tax initiative. So, and I've got a lot of hands, and I've got another guy waiting behind me.
Can you just explain what you said about a sales tax refund? Because you guys, the commissioners, somebody brought up sales tax.
Yeah, I brought it up.
What is that?
Yeah, if you have sales tax dollars and you do a public-private partnership within the CRA, you can't use sales, you can't put up the land as our side of the public partnership.
So how would you refund that money?
It would have to come from other funding sources, either through the general fund or
But are
something
you
else.
talking about refunding people who voted?
No, refunding the sales tax money.
Into the
And the
account.
sales tax money would go back into the hopper for other sales tax
But
projects.
they paid for it. They paid for that to be expanded.
Yeah, and right now, it is the way it is, but if we were to do a public-private partnership, we would have to pay that sales tax money back and put it back in the
But
sales
that's
tax
what the
bucket.
people voted for.
Yeah, but the $7.1 million, we're moving ahead with that no matter what. I mean, it's gonna go somewhere in a family services center. I'm trying to refocus back on that site because that's what was in the initiative at the time. So, I'll get to you last because there's people that didn't get a chance to answer the question. Anything new? Anybody who hasn't had a question And then I'll go back to the people who already asked, because I jumped ahead of a gentleman who's here to talk about another project. Who had their hand up? Yes.
Okay. I wanted to ask a couple of questions. Number one, only four commissioners are voting on this because Commissioner Constance said he has property here, so he can't vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 2 to 2. What happens with 2 to 2 if you have 2 yes, 2
It's
no?
what I just said is a push. Nothing happens.
It's what?
It's a push.
Nothing
Nothing happens.
And nothing will happen if it's
Nothing
2
happens.
to 2.
That's right.
Okay. I appreciate all that you've been saying here. I know you are standing up for the people here. I know you are the one who stopped it from being pushed through. So I appreciate that. We're not going to pick on you.
That's okay.
Okay.
It's part of the deal when you're a public servant.
I know.
Don't get the territory.
The other is that if they should go for housing on part of the site, they would include their own parking on that site, just as everyone on Aaron Street, all of those,
Yeah.
that housing, they have their own parking
Yeah,
space
they'd have
on
to,
site.
if they had to bring up utilities up to standard, like the water or sewer, they'd have to
No,
pay
no.
for that, or parking, yeah, they have to meet parking requirements. If
Because
it's-
they were not including that on the site. When they were talking about 90 apartments,
Yeah,
they
but-
were not including parking on the site.
No, that would be part of the calculation. So some civil engineer somewhere would lay this out and determine how many parking spaces are needed, and they put it where it's supposed to go.
On the site.
Yeah, so there's a process that goes through. It has to go through permitting and agency review. So
What about the
there's
traffic?
multiple agencies it would go through to get
And the
there.
other concern I have that I had brought up to many of the people here once before is that the people who are directing this, other than the commissioners, they don't even live in Charlotte County. The head of the real estate department lives in Lee County. The head of the deputy administrator, which is a very high position, and the person sits on the dais sometimes, lives in Sarasota County. Ms. Pierce, I'm not sure, I think she lives in Incorporated, the city of Punta Gorda, I'm not
Well,
positive.
all your commissioners and constitutional officers live in Charlotte County.
Yes, I
So,
know, but the
you know.
people who are presenting this, like Murdoch Village, the giveaway at Murdoch Village, that was, anybody could have done that, said to somebody, you
Yeah.
want to build here, it's yours for nothing. And the same thing's happening down in Charlotte Harbor. So I feel that the people who live here are not being represented. They are representing the people they want to bring here.
Well, I don't want you to feel I'm not representing you. I mean,
You
that's
do.
that's why I ran for office, to
I won't
represent
say-
everybody.
I said I won't pick on you. but
No,
I-
that's okay. You can, like,
You
look.
do, you are representing the people here. That's why you're here tonight. And I appreciate that you stopped it when you did. Now, the workshop is not televised.
No, I actually, I asked, I wanted a workshop, but I actually asked to do a presentation from the dais. So I'm going to ask that we have staff do a presentation, so it's televised.
So it's televised.
Nice.
That's right. Yeah, I think this rises to the level, because a lot of people can't get to those workshop meetings or B106.
Right.
So I was going to ask that we move this up and get it televised. I think it, definitely rises to that level.
Do it in public.
Is there any new questions that I haven't covered? Because I do have a gentleman here to do a presentation on Harbor. He's been waiting for an hour.
You didn't answer the question about the
Which-
traffic study. Are you planning on?
No, yeah, if any proposal that comes forward, it would have to be addressed through the review process I mentioned, the various agencies we have. So they'd have to look if there's any off-site improvements required. So if somebody was putting in apartments, it may trigger a study. I'd have to get with staff on that for sure. I don't want to tell you something wrong, but typically with developments, if they trip a certain threshold, that would require a traffic impact statement. That would require what they call off-site improvements, which maybe mean a turn lane or a stacking lane. I just don't want to tell you 100%, but there is a process for that.
I just have a last question that will end your whole segment.
Okay.
Okay? I would like to see, by a show of hands, how many people in this room tonight that spent time coming here to listen to this would like to see an apartment complex on Gibraltar? Raise your hand if you're okay with that.
I'm going to do that.
I want the commissioner to see this as a visual, not one.
Okay. And like I said, apartments weren't proposed. Home ownership was proposed.
Whatever you want to spin it, fine, but they don't want it.
Okay. I get it.
Max Stenson
Yeah,
is what we don't want.
yes, ma'am, you were standing.
My question is, when you guys do this, is your county attorney reviewing what y'all are doing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, things are obviously not, because the sales tax referendum that was voted in. That's a big uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's almost on the criminal side.
Well, look, I'm not gonna go that far, but the county attorney, you know, one of her roles is if there's a legal issue and she sees something is completely missed, she's kind of compelled to jump in. But they don't want to, if it's not in her perceived mind as a legal issue, she wants the commissioners to have free dialogue, because if she does start putting in her opinion where she doesn't think it belongs, she doesn't want to sway the vote one way or another, because she's not an elected official. Right. So she uses her judgment on when to jump in and say, Commissioner, no, legally, this, that, and
She should have been knowledgeable enough to jump in before you guys passed it.
I appreciate that comment. That's what I have to say about that. Yes, sir.
It seems to me, I remember reading that the attorney said to the commissioners that while making this switch might be, I don't think she said unethical, which I think it would be, but she said it's not illegal. She gave an opinion according to the report on the paper. Yeah. But bottom line for me, Joe, and I think for you too, is, well, two things. Number one, the issue is Family Services Center on that property. All this other stuff about housing and street traffic and all that, forget about it. You know what I'm saying? Forget about it. It doesn't matter if we deal with this issue. And when we deal with the issue, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Lucerne or whatever, I was shocked at her presentation. She's saying we this and we that, and I'm thinking, who's we?
Oh, I'm talking about the group.
No, I mean at her, when she made the presentation on the density. We this and we that, and I'm thinking, who's we? Who was giving the input on this thing? And it seemed to me it was staff people and whatever. So when you start looking at the Family Services Center, which I believe is what's going to go on that property, how are we doing? We're using the whole 6 acres, and it's going to be, it is sweet, it is sweet. Oh, I don't trust the newspapers all the time, but they reported on the revote on the marijuana dispensary, which I voted against. Yeah. But your issue was you reconsidered because what?
That's what the voters voted.
70%
That's right.
supported.
There you go.
And so, hey,
consistent.
I'm not going to fight it. 70%.
I don't like that either.
I didn't agree with it, but okay.
But the voters voted.
It's the same thing here. And what all this talk about housing, it's just delaying. That time needs to be spent developing that property for the community service center and getting that thing going. It's already a year and a half behind.
I don't disagree with any of that. If you go back and listen to when I pulled the agenda, I laid out all those things about the voters, the priority, and we've lost 3 years by waffling. Yep. There's no doubt about it. I don't disagree with any of that. And my intent is to refocus and zero in on the Family Services Center. That needs to be resolved because it was voted on. But, you know, your point about the voters voted for, we have to remember, the sales tax initiative in 2014 passed 55%, 45%. Yeah. The whole county voted for it. I'm responsible as a countywide official to look at the whole county and take care of the whole county in my decision-making process. Just you folks didn't vote for the Family Services Center. It required people in Punta Gorda, West County for that vote.
That's right.
So I just want you to remember, this group didn't vote and say this is what we wanted. So I try to take a view of what's best for the whole county, realizing we need housing, but also realizing as a family. So you have to remember that. The burden on me is different than the burden on you. I'm responsible for everybody, not just the folks in Parkside. Even though this is in my district, I'm responsible for everybody. It was a countywide vote that got that Family Services Center here. That's my point. So, you know, I try to take that approach when I look at issues and try to solve problems. How does it affect the whole community? And without a doubt, you can't deny there is a housing crisis in Charlotte County.
Absolutely.
And so that was my point. And apparently you folks don't want to hear. I get that point too. So right now, not to, again, drag out the point with the apartments, but we need to resolve this Family Service Center. That's where I'm at. I'm going to focus in on that and bring that to a head. It's 3 years is way too long. Right. That was supposed to be done by 2020. Even if we started tomorrow, we wouldn't be able to deliver it because we don't have any plans. So hopefully in the coming months, you're going to be able to go to those public hearings, and you'll be able to have some input on that, and we can get a final answer on, let's get going. We have to make a decision. Okay, I got time for one more question. Yes, sir.
This is important. The administrative code you're talking about, the county codes?
Yeah.
How enforceable are they? Because the commissioners have violated their own codes for their own benefit a couple of times at least. So are those enforceable? I mean, are they just suggestions because they don't follow them? So how come
Well, I
they need to
guess,
follow them now?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know if those are statutory codes. Those are just our rules. And I can't speak to if anybody violated anything. Alls I know is when I looked into reconsidering, I looked at that, read it myself, and I came to the conclusion I couldn't. So I pulled it from the item, and I will not transfer it into the CRA until the Family Services Center is resolved, because again, that takes priority. And I hope you all go back and listen to Commissioner comments if you can on the video. I kind of laid it out, I think, in a pretty clear way by using facts and statistics, and just laid it out as to why I was doing what I was doing. And that goes to transparency, because, you know...
How about HUD, though? One more thing. What about HUD? Have you guys looked into HUD? They put money into that CRA for housing and stuff. I think where the Habitat for Humanity got money from the state. So does HUD can they get their fingers in this and require that you put certain low-income people in?
We have a housing official here. I don't know if you want to comment on that. I can't speak to HUD. I mean, I don't have enough...
The HUD money was used with the NSP program when we bought out properties that people closed out here.
I don't think everybody can hear you, Bob.
There's an affordability clause on it again.
Maybe just introduce yourself.
I'm Bob Eager, the housing manager for the county.
What's he saying?
Cut them off.
Can you guys hear everyone else up there?
Yeah.
Sorry to butt in. I had to get that one in.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of detail. I didn't think it was working.
Okay, this is Bob Hebert for Charlotte County, and I'll be very brief.
Talking into a dead mic for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Wait, I heard you back there.
You heard me? Good.
It went dead again. I think the battery.
I think the battery may be gone.
Just talk loud.
When we bought houses in here under the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, which is a block grant that came out of Washington, those houses are all built and occupied. At this point, the only restriction that's on them is if somebody goes to sell them, then they have to sell them to a similarly qualified person to buy it, which means they have to be low to moderate income. We can't tear them down, we can't resell them. Habitat has most of those. The county still owns a couple that we have people that are renting in transitional housing in. But we did about 56 houses in the Parkside area in that 2 grants rental. So HUD doesn't have a whole lot to say about that as long as we can see the requirements, but that's also the reason we don't take a whole lot of HUD money, because they got strings on this stuff that's beyond what you can imagine. So the county does not embrace HUD funds unless they're forced into it or have to, because it's all block grant.
I think where Mr. Kesselring was going was furthering affirmative action. I think you had mentioned that before, and some of that comes with a lot of...
That's required in any house, no matter if HUD knows
Yeah.
it or not.
Yeah.
Affirmative action is required in federal law.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who wants the house or who owns the house.
Well, what I can do is I brought some cards here. Obviously, I'm available. You have on the county website, but I do have some cards with my email address, but all that can be found online. For those of you that don't like doing the online thing, I'll just leave some cards maybe in the back room. I've already heard the next presentation, but I'll stick around. Anybody who knows me or emails me, I typically try to get back within 24 to 48 hours, unless it requires a lot of research. But folks that have emailed me, I think, you know...
You do very good. Thank you.
Yeah, my turnaround is pretty
Appreciate
quick. There's a gentleman here too, he had an issue. I make site visits, I get out in the field. There was an issue that got resolved in 24 hours because I got out in the field. I'm hands-on and very available. So if anybody wants to talk some more, maybe on a one-on-one, I think Susan sent me some emails. I get back to you within 24 hours. So, okay, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to take this back with me to the commission chamber, and we'll try to get that Family Services Center back on track.
Thank you.
Okay?